Today, I'm joined on Assembly Line by Rimon Hanna of Serpent from Tekunda. Welcome to Assembly Line, Rimon.
Thank you. A pleasure to be here, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting into your story. So, first off, maybe you could share a little bit about Serpent, what problem it solves, who it's for, and how you got into the Salesforce space in particular.
Sure. I guess the journey starts with how I ended up in Salesforce in the first place. In 2018, I was working at a company, Volkswagen, which is an ASSA ABLOY subsidiary, and there they were using Salesforce, and I was as a user exposed to it, and they were having some challenges in their service department, dealing with so many cases coming in, and they need someone to help them out a bit. I was not aware of what Salesforce is at all at that moment, except what I saw. And yeah, I helped them out, made like an automation that helped them reduce the number of cases by 93%, thankfully, and they were able to pick up their operations more successfully. But while delivering on that improvement and many other things later on over the years, that's when the pain point of Salesforce delivery started growing and growing and growing. And I tried to fix that with multiple approaches at the beginning, like getting to know the Salesforce CLI, which was called SFDX at
Hmm.
first. And it was still a bit immature back then, but we still tried to write like GitHub actions and scripts around it. But it lacked a lot of things, because even if you wrote those scripts and they were like created in a spotless CI/CD, you still lack collaboration with non-technical people, your stakeholders, your testers, your how do I trigger that? How do I see this? How can I access this org? Um, where's the latest version? Is it on this sandbox or that Scratch org? So those kept accumulating, and I tried to use some of the tools out there, and I felt like if you're specifically doing package development and basically as an ISV, there's not something that was really supporting that workflow. And that's what we were doing. We were doing a lot of our projects as ISV, and then I was like, okay, maybe something needs to give. And that was the inspiration behind Serpent, which was born as a Salesforce DevOps platform for ISVs, and then grew to also support customers and system integrators and other use cases. And the main I would say like the main thing that differentiates Serpent is that we always say like Git, or in general like source control, should not be optional. It should be a given, something that happens everywhere, and it needs to be your main source of truth. No change should live on an org somewhere, or someone's local device, or like those untracked changes should never exist. And with that methodology and that like mission at hand, we built Serpent that makes it really easy to follow Git without having to learn Git, which is a huge learning barrier for a lot of people in the Salesforce ecosystem. And much like any Salesforce team, our team was filled with different backgrounds, not all software engineers that are comfortable using a CLI and working in VS Code. So using Serpent, we were able to empower everyone to not even think about Git. They think about what they want to do. I want to deliver from point A to point B, and it takes care of the rest.
Hmm. Yeah, I I think a lot of folks listening to the call that have dealt with deployments are probably nodding along. Some going back to the days before even the CLI. This has long been a problem. People wanted to get away from change sets. Back in the day, it was Ant migration scripts. Then, as you mentioned, moving to GitHub Actions through the CLI. Very cool. It's interesting that you first tackled the ISV use case. I think that's probably unique among players in the space. Would you say that migrating to a traditional Salesforce deployment use case was challenging, or would you say that you took on the harder user story first, and then it was easier to migrate or augment the other use case?
Great question. I would say they're different, not harder or easier, especially because the user is different. Like
Hmm.
the person you're building this for is very different. Like if you're an ISV, you have a different release process completely. than traditional org development. And a product development, I come from a product development background, like mobile or backend or whatever, but and it kind of mirrors what the ISV has to go through a bit, with the exception that it's mostly on cloud rather than local machine first. And that was an easy bridge to take, but then finally getting into the shoes of like the consultants and the functional consultants, the configurator, the admins, the different personas you have, because as soon as you go into the like this org development or traditional Salesforce, then the number of personas or users basically explodes.
Hmm.
Yeah, curate for the whole range, starting all the way from, the junior admin that is still learning how to deliver on Salesforce, all the way to the architect and the developer that might be able to easily work in VS Code and wants to stay without in that environment. So that inspired, for example, creating like a standard mode and an expert mode inside of Serpent. It also inspired creating a VS Code extension and an MCP server for connecting your AI coding assistant.
Hmm.
So, like a lot of like design and feature decisions were driven by how to curate for the different personas in one platform. And I think that was the biggest challenge we had to tackle.
Mm. I would imagine it's also like you mentioned. Not only are there different user personas, but there's also just different challenges in general. I think ISVs kind of deliver; they have a known build for their package, right? Whereas in a Salesforce org, there could be any number of simultaneous projects going on. Other people pushing and deploying to production that maybe the folks that are using Serpent aren't even aware of, and so you need to worry about conflicts because production has changed since you last pushed to it. And in the ISV world, if it's a second gen package, then it's all source managed, and you're not even really worrying about the org deployment per se, as much as you are just merge conflicts of the source itself. Was that a challenge too? In addition to the different user personas.
I couldn't agree more. Actually, it was a massive challenge because um, we built Serpent around source format, which is very
Hmm.
familiar for the ISV world. It's how you track your changes and put them in a repo, and how you publish everything. But in the org development, everyone is more familiar with the metadata API. Either if you have CI/CD or you're using any of the tools available for you out there, they're mostly geared or designed around the metadata API format, including chain sets, by the way. So the thing is, it's quite a mindset shift to also introduce people to that too. So there's a bit of education that we do also when we bring in a new customer and new users, and we explain the benefits, because also with the source format, it's a bit more human readable and you can review a lot of it. It's easier to resolve conflicts, I would say, and detect changes between orgs. So most of the engine of Serpent is designed around using that source format. So it also we have Serpent AI, which is an assistant that helps you resolve conflicts. And
Mm,
if people are collaborating and working on the same flows are especially very hard to debug with conflicts. And
yes.
you don't have to worry about that for you. The AI agent would actually try to resolve the conflict for you, test it, and make sure that it's now deployable after the merge conflict resolution, and that it reviews it afterwards to make sure that it didn't lose any context from both changes. And it works for like 95% plus cases, which is quite high, if you can imagine. And you only have to deal with the remaining five. And there's a lot of other like use cases where making sure people are empowered to focus on building features rather than, oh, I missed something here. For example, like dependency analysis, which is also something is capability that is both easy to trace in source format, but also very easy now handled not just by static analysis, but by having an AI agent that can say like, hey, something is missing. Also like doing dry runs for deployments and saying like, hey, you're missing a dependency here. Maybe go back and select it from your sandbox. Yeah. So that's what we've been tackling this problem with.
Very cool. Yes. I think DevOps is a problem that everyone needs a solution for. So it's a very cool space to be working in. I could continue geeking out over the technical aspects, but I want to pop the stack a little bit and just ask. So when you were getting started, obviously you lived through this pain yourself, right?
Definitely.
In your work, and so was that enough for you to know that this was an itch that a lot of folks out there in the Salesforce ecosystem needed scratched, or did you do any sort of validation before you started building Serpent?
Well, definitely we ran a lot of validations. So we actually went to the Salesforce Reddit community
Okay.
and started asking them questions and figuring out who else still has the pain, who is using what tools, what are they missing out of those tools, what setup they have. They are using running their own CI/CD or still using chain sets. And I don't know if you know that the Salesforce Ben research that came out saying that 42% of like Salesforce admins are still using chain sets.
Mm. My heart bleeds for them.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And even developers, there's still a decent amount of developers using ChainSets until today. I was with a call with someone yesterday. Is like, I had to learn ChainSets for the first time. He actually got spoiled and started the other way around with like proper DevOps, but then he joined a team that doesn't have any setup, and none of them know how to use anything else other than ChainSets. And that's
Mm,
where we're coming in. We're trying to help them, bridge that gap. But he had to learn chain sets to be able
mm.
to cope with the team delivery workflow. And I think that that's just going the wrong direction. But thankfully, he was familiar enough to know, like, well, we need to change this. And he's slowly doing the change management across his organization to bring the team to Serpent.
Interesting. So you mentioned Reddit was a good source for validation for you. I'm curious how you went about that because I've heard from other founders that the Salesforce Reddit is a great space to jump into, but that it's all you also have to be careful about being too salesy. How did you approach jumping into that community? And did you get a warm welcome, even though you're coming from with like a business use case eventually to build an app, or were you already active in the space beforehand, so you kind of had that goodwill built up?
It's a mix of both. So we actually had to learn the hard way. I didn't understand like this specific subreddit is even more sensitive to like anything that could be remotely considered a sales pitch, although it might not even be like that far off. Like someone might be asking a question and you're honestly answering, but the answer includes your product mentioned in it, and it immediately is flagged as sales. So you have to be careful about that with that subreddit, especially. I think Salesforce is doing a lot of like overwhelming sales pitches everywhere, which we all are familiar with, but that means the community is a bit more careful and pushes back. So we had to learn like we're part of the community already for quite some time. So we were contributing and asking questions and already for a while, and that earned us some rapport. But we fell still into the mistake of maybe pitching or something like this. So now we mostly focus on really solving people's problems. Sometimes, like saying like, if you want more info, just like DM me and I'll tell you about
Hmm.
that. And that's when I mentioned maybe Serpent. But also like regardless of Reddit or even through our blog posts, we're always trying or LinkedIn, we're trying to always share useful information. So when Salesforce, for example, was changing their security requirements, especially around connected apps, and they were retiring old connected apps approaches and introducing like external apps, and there was there was a huge change there. The thing
Hmm.
is, when they started introducing that, uh, people were given about a very short window to fix it with very
Yes.
limited documentation about how to fix it. And we were super affected by it. So we quickly fixed the problem ourselves through manual research and trial and error. And then we documented how we fixed this and shared it with the community. And it had an overwhelming positive response. So this is one of the ways where we make sure people recognize us as someone that is there to support them through their Salesforce journey, either as an ISV or as a customer or as a system integrator, regardless if they choose Serpent or not. because
That's
that's the
interesting.
goal at the end, right?
Sure, sure. I mean, it makes sense that you mentioned the Salesforce Ben survey, and unfortunately, 42% of admins leveraging change sets. Not sure when that what year that came out. But regardless, obviously, it seems like educating your user slash buyer is a key part of running Serpent. And I'm curious, um, has that been a challenge that you have to e- educate admins to get away from change sets, or do they all feel the pain? I'm like, is your biggest competitor um, another DevOps tool, or would you say your biggest competitor is just an admin continuing on the path that they've been on and saying, honestly, change sets are fine for me?
I would say it's the biggest competitor really is ChangeSet still. On the second one being other DevOps tools. And the reason for that is there's still a lot of teams. So you don't really feel the pain that much when you're a single admin, unless you're a single admin that doesn't feels the pain of, oh, I have to keep track and select and etc. And you do big releases, so you still have to remember what you're selecting. But if you're always like doing in maintenance mode basically, and you're doing small changes here and there, then I've met with someone like, I don't really feel the need for something like this. It just takes me 5 minutes to deliver the new change that I get anyway, because I know exactly what I built. So needs also exponentially grows as your team grows. The
Sure.
moment you're like 3 people or something, then you run into conflicts. You run into like people changing something directly in production or in another sandbox, and you don't know who's delivering what. And so, and as that complexity, as the team grows, the complexity grows. I think that's the biggest pain point. And there's still a lot of teams out there that are still big numbers with a lot of people that are on change sets today. So that was very surprising. And to answer your question about when the survey came out last year, 25,
Oh, okay. Wow.
recent. Yeah.
Wow, that's surprising that still so many folks are leveraging it, but goes to the power of inertia, I suppose.
Yeah.
So okay, so that makes sense at a certain at a micro size, perhaps single admin um, doesn't feel the squeeze for a DevOps tool. But before we turn the microphones on, you actually did mention that Serpent is targeting more enterprise level customers, anyways, which probably makes sense with given that the micro ones don't feel the need or don't feel the pain as much. Um, I'm curious, how has your go-to-market strategy been targeting these large enterprise customers?
Great question. I think, like any other product at its first launch, we've been online for more than a year now, and I would say the challenging part is finding your niche and your fit at the beginning. And first, we of course launched within the ISV ecosystem, and we started expanding outside because we started getting like interest out automatically that we didn't even plan for. And funny enough, we would thought the second biggest interest would come from customers, but it came from system integrators.
Hmm.
And the reason for that, and it's the most important thing that I'm trying to say with that lesson is listen to how the market reacts rather than getting tunnel visioned after your original plan. As a new product or like a new company trying to, or a existing company trying to launch a new product, you also have to be quick to pivot depending on market reaction. In this case, the reason for system integrators is that a lot of they personally usually don't want to pay for a tool, but if they had to, a lot of the competitors are extremely expensive based on number of seats, which they cannot justify because they're building something for their customer. But they want to improve their quality of delivery and they want to improve how fast they onboard new team members. So a tool would make that a lot easier, a platform, something that can support different dimensions. But then we have a partnership program that makes it really easy for system integrators to also bring Serpent to their customers once they're exiting the implementation, for example. Especially that at
Mm,
this point, if the customer has internal team, they're already familiar using Serpent from the system integrator. And they tend to, like, the boutique system integrators start at like 25, 30 people. If you multiply 25, 30 people by, I don't know, $300 per month, you get a sizable bill per month. While at Serpent, we don't bill per user, we bill per usage credits. So it's
Interesting.
around
Okay.
how much releases you've done, how much deployments you've done, and that makes it more like dynamic. If one customer doesn't, as a user, I don't consume much, I'm not using much. I have one customer consuming too much for me. Okay, then maybe I need to think about billing that customer for the usage, because it's all tracked per
Hmm.
project, and we have the concepts of projects, so you can link it to your project management as well, like Jira or Notion, and you can check like, in that project, I consumed that much credits on Serpent. Maybe I need to pass that cost to my customer.
Hmm. That's very. I could definitely see how an SI would want to sign up for that. Interesting that your pricing is usage based rather than seat based. I think it's a good time for that too. Maybe a few years ago, that would be harder for the market to wrap their head around. But I think with all these AI models and the push towards usage based metered pricing, I think the average user can wrap their head more around that as opposed to seat based.
Mhm.
So I could definitely see how, especially in an SI, if it's all tracked, how they'd want to jump on Serpent and leverage that with their customers. I've heard a lot of ISVs talk about partnerships with SIs in particular as a useful growth channel. And you mentioned that you can kind of get a bonus customer from that when they roll off of their implementation projects
Mhm.
if their end customer decides to keep Serpent for their own DevOps use down the road. When do you have some sort of referral agreement for SIs in that use case, or how does that work?
Yeah, we do. So we have like something we built early on already in the first few months of launching Serpent is a solid partnership agreement with like 3 tiers: silver, gold, and platinum. And depending on the market the partner is being onboarded on, we can either onboard on already silver or gold. Sometimes we skip, and you have to maintain the tier. You have to refer a certain amount of customers per year, or you can grow up a tier, of course, and with a decent amount of referral revenue share for both like first year and renewals as well. So they if they keep engaged with the customer and they help us stay there as well, and they are bringing us also like more business, they're also growing their business, and they're also kind of taking a discount, maybe even making profit over that partnership, because at the beginning they discount their own subscription basically until it's
Mhm.
zero. They're getting more money out of that partnership. Yeah.
It's I love strategies like that that can be a win-win for everybody. So that makes a lot of sense. I want to talk a little bit about the unique space you're in, given that Salesforce does have their DevOps Center uh, platform. Has that product been um, caused any headwinds for you and your team? Do you have customers that you're trying to, or I guess leads, I should say, that you're trying to get onto Serpent off of DevOps Center, or has that been a challenge for you when you're in these discussions?
Well, it already came up in the market research because DevOps Center was already launching its first beta back then.
Hmm.
And um, the thing is, like, actually linking up to a question you asked earlier, and maybe I didn't fully answer it, is that in the market research, we realized that a lot of the pain points we had was not solved at all, and a lot of people had them. So, and I think another validation that came is that there's a lot of more niche competitors that are trying still to try and solve that problem, because no big market shareholder has finally solved that main problem. We're hoping to be that one.
Hmm.
Fingers crossed. But basically, like, this main workflow oriented delivery that does Git in the background and enforces source tracking, right? Otherwise, it's a waste of time if you consider source control um, as a backup. But anyway, um, we noticed that DevOps Center users tend to come from change sets to DevOps Center first. because yes, it's free, it's available. It's also like first party, not third party. So everyone was like, okay, it's a no-brainer. Let's give it a shot. And then after a while of trying DevOps Center, they're like, oh wait, I'm missing this and I'm missing that. I'm missing that. Do I look for a vendor maybe for those extra things? They look for a vendor, then realize that the vendor can also do what DevOps Center does. And I think Salesforce is not prioritizing DevOps Center that much
Mm,
because it's a free product. So unless they come up with a commercial plan to monetize it, it still is an afterthought. And
hmm
that's why it's not growing as fast every year. And I was wondering if we should keep investing in Serpent or Pivot if they are going to push DevOps Center, like as far
Sure.
as getting out the whole market share. But it turns out, like for now, it's not. And if they do, then they're gonna release it as a paid product. So then you're back to competing as just another third party.
Gotcha. Okay. So it's interesting because I've talked with some ISVs that have that that sort of play in the same space as the Salesforce offering, and they've mentioned that they don't exactly feel the love from AEs and SEs because they'd rather push clients toward the Salesforce add-on tools. In the case of DevOps, given that doesn't lead to any additional revenue for Salesforce, it seems like more of an even playing field. Um,
Definitely.
yeah, so
Exactly.
very cool. And could you give viewers and listeners an idea of the size of Serpent today in terms of employees, customer count?
So we're 13 people, mostly developers. And we have like across UAE, Egypt, US, and the Netherlands, and we have customers all over the world. Um, like I'm sometimes still surprised the signups we get are from regions we have not tried to target at all. So that's quite positive. I'm happy with that. And we have over 60 customers at the moment using Serpent on day-to-day basis.
Wow, that's great. And that's after only just you said about a year and a half or so?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow, that's some great growth. Okay, so what are you doing? You mentioned the Reddit community. Is that where the majority of these leads are coming from, or are you doing any outbound? What's your lead gen? Your main growth channel has been for lead gen.
So Reddit was great for the initial private beta testing and getting some signups early on to check it out and get some feedback. And then later on, it became more of like a marketing channel. So like not that high number of leads growth. But in terms of sales, we're doing direct sales mostly and going to events, a lot of the Salesforce events, the community events. Um, I'm like maybe thinking about going to Dreamforce again this year. Not
Mhm,
entirely sure yet. But the smaller events were very effective because you get a cozy conversation vibe where we actually get to know each other, and the conversation kind of rolls on naturally, where you don't not any sell or anything. You're just mentioning what you're working on, right? And people might get curious and ask more questions. You also get curious about their building, and you learn from each other, and you help each other grow. So I think that's the biggest channel for us.
hmm, very cool. Yeah, and would you say I know initially you were building for the ISV use case. What is your customer split right now? Would you say you're still mostly building for ISVs, or has the kind of Salesforce customer user persona taken over?
They have a bit, so they're about now 60%. So now
Okay.
our the user base is about 40%, and I can imagine as we grow, that will still be even more imbalanced because just the numbers. But we still wholeheartedly support the ISV process and keep growing that part because it's where we come from, and we are actually a user ourselves. From like Serpent is part of Tekunda,
hmm
and Tekunda is also Salesforce ISV and a PDO. So we build a lot of products on Salesforce, and we use it day to day to be able to deliver.
Gotcha. So that explains the experience and the lived experience of dealing with Salesforce DevOps and the challenges there. If you're a
Definitely,
PDO, you're building packages all the time. Very
definitely.
cool. Okay. You mentioned that the team size is about 13 today, mostly developers. and yet you're also targeting a lot of enterprise. Do you have any sales or biz dev team members that are helping go after those larger customers?
Yes. So we are for business development. So myself included, and someone in Egypt, someone in UAE, and someone in the US. And we have someone that's also joining on a part-time basis here in the Netherlands.
Very cool. And were those? Did you first start hiring? First of all, how long into Serpent's history did you realize it was time to start hiring and growing the team? And second, which hires did you make? Did you hire up developers first, or did you immediately start building out the biz dev folks?
Definitely the developers first, especially that we started before the AI coding era. So like we launched about a year and a half ago, but we started development of the MVP 3 years ago, right?
Okay,
So it was before the AI assisted coding. So you needed a development team to be able to deliver a product and bring it to production. And we had two first hires, which were two engineers, and they helped build the first version of Serpent that came to the market. And then we kept adding engineers, and then just before go to market, that's when we started looking for business development. And we actually had our first business development hires joining a few months after launching.
very cool. Yeah, since you brought up AI, you had also mentioned that there's some AI features in Serpent today, but I'm curious if you could expand on how AI has changed kind of your strategy for Serpent. Obviously, it's impacted your roadmap given you have some AI features embedded. Could you speak to that a little bit?
Sure. It definitely changed a lot of things. It actually changed also our first of things, changed our ability to deliver faster. So like feature to production now sometimes takes a few days.
Hmm.
We actually release every day. We've always had this like mentality of releasing every other day from day one, but it made it a lot easier to release even more within the day, zero downtime for the user, and getting features delivered directly to them. Sometimes we deliver those features behind feature flags, so they're not disruptive to the user experience. But a lot of the times they just because they're new features or extra sections in the web app, so they don't really intervene or disrupt the existing user flow. And it changed our roadmap in a sense that we realized we can do a lot more than we could before. And then that's just amazing benefit for everyone involved. So the first problem we solved was the conflict resolution. It was a no-brainer. Like it's just so many people don't even understand how to resolve a conflict manually in the Salesforce ecosystem, and just that takes care of it. I mean, even if it made a mistake 5% of the time, then you're dealing with 5% mistake rather than dealing with 100% of it. And if I talk about also other use cases, there's and that's the one I'm the happiest with because it came from a customer. We were talking with a customer and they expressed a pain where they spent 3 hours manually selecting the auto detected changes out of a sandbox because there were multiple people working on the same sandbox and they had three features on there. They wanted to cherry pick basically one of those three pick features.
Mm,
And although already Serpent makes it really easy to detect changes on the sandbox because it auto detects the changes and you don't have to select manually any metadata types like any other tools would need. In
mhm.
this case, all the changes were too many. They wanted to cherry pick, and they spent 2.5 hours, almost three, doing that manually. We released a feature that uses AI where you explain your feature to it, and it will cherry pick it for you. And
Wow.
will select the features and you can still review it and make any modifications if something was wrong, but most of the cases 100% right. And it also shares like confidence on the selection and why it made that selection based on your explanation. Yeah.
This is very cool. I can picture on the development side in Git going through these exact same challenges. I remember for the first time doing merge conflict resolution in Git, it was very daunting.
Yeah.
um, and then I've done gone through cherry picking Git commits before, and that can be a pain. And that's just at the source control level with Git. I can't imagine an admin going through those same pain points that maybe is looking at through the lens of just the Salesforce UI. That sounds uh, unbelievably frustrating. So it's very cool that you're building out solutions to that using AI. That's very,
Yeah.
very, very cool.
I would say like the last thing is that personally I use every other day whenever I'm working on a Salesforce project is the MCP server. So for people that are not familiar with MCP, it's the Model Context Protocol, and it's a protocol developed by developed for AI agents to be able to communicate with APIs. And we have a Serpent MCP. And why is that valuable? How is that different, for example, than just using Claude or Codex or whatever with Salesforce CLI? Well, Salesforce CLI would just immediately deploy or might make a mistake or something like this. It doesn't go through the gates and checks that
Hmm.
Serpent already has. So it wouldn't plug into a workflow that involves other people. It's still directly communicating with an org, and it could cause mistakes. It can also deploy things you don't want to deploy, etc. So using the MCP, it's able to still plug into that Serpent workflow, and other people that are still using the web interface, they can use the web interface, while a developer or an architect can just work directly with Cloud, for example.
Oh, wow, that's very cool. Okay, well, so obviously, coming from a PDO background, and obviously building for ISV use cases, ISVs are near and dear to your heart. We got connected actually through ISV forum of prior guests of the show, Andre Van Kampen. Maybe you could share a little bit about your involvement in ISV forum and how that's helped you grow Serpent.
Of course. I got to meet Andre about a year ago, maybe a little bit over that, at one of the Amsterdam user groups. And yeah, we had a click from the beginning and we stayed in touch. And I attended a lot of those events here locally in Amsterdam. And that's when he introduced me to the ISV forum. And just recently, actually, this summer, I got invited to as co-host the ISV forum in London and speak about the challenges that we have as an ISVs to deliver on the platform, go through security review and app exchange listing, and also how to be able to deliver using Serpent and clean Git and DevOps for ISVs. And it was a like an amazing experience, and connected with amazing people there, and stayed in touch through the WhatsApp group. And I think that's what I was mentioning earlier, that the best part in the Salesforce ecosystem is its communities and how you can learn from each other and add to each other's value. And I think that's how I got introduced to ISV Forum and how I became thankfully a contributing member, and hope to keep doing that.
Yeah, I love that story. Obviously, I completely agree. It's one of the main motivations for starting this podcast, actually, right? So, with that, we should wrap up. So, but before we do, I wanted to ask if you had any, in the interest of community, do you have any advice to kind of early stage founders of ISVs that are viewing or listening right now? Some lessons learned through the trenches.
I think the most important one is released as fast as you can, even of no matter how small what you have is. If even if it's in your mind not complete, I know a lot of us struggle with that. I still do until today. I'm not gonna say I'm perfect at it, but even if you think it's too small, sometimes it's valuable enough for someone to already buy it or validate it. But also for security review, smaller the package you go through security review, the less the chance they will find anything to flag. So very important, release as soon as possible, and then iterate and be flexible to learn from feedback. The faster you change and manage feedback and listen to your potential users and customers, the better you're building a product that actually people use.
Yeah, I love that. Well, that's very very good tactical advice. Thank you, Ramon, for joining Assembly Line today. If folks listening want to get in touch with you or learn more about Serpent, what is the best way for them to do that?
Well, you can also connect with me on LinkedIn, Rimon Hanna, but also our website, tekunda.com/serpent, or check out serpent.cloud. these are all different channels. Find us on LinkedIn as well. Or
Great.
Reddit.
Yes, or Reddit. Well, thank you again. Really appreciate you joining today, and best of luck to you and the Serpent team.
Thank you very much for having me, Scott. It was a pleasure. Have a
Cheers.
great day.
You too. Bye bye.